For years, I fought to mend the broken bond with my mother. I gave her countless chances, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she'd change. But the night of my pregnancy announcement proved once and for all that she was beyond redemption. In front of my family, my friends, and even my colleagues, she humiliated me so deeply that I snapped. And in that moment, everything unraveled. At 29, I had finally received the news I had been waiting for. My husband and I were expecting our first child. After 6 months of trying, we were overjoyed. It was a dream we had longed for, a milestone we desperately wanted to celebrate. So, we decided to throw a party, inviting everyone who mattered, family, friends, even co-workers. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a moment of love and togetherness. And against my better judgment, I invited my mother. Looking back, I wish I hadn't. I should have known better. Our relationship had always been fraught, built more on obligation than love. The truth was, we had never truly been close. She had spent my entire childhood breaking me down, making me feel like I was never enough. Yet, I still clung to the foolish hope that one day, she would change. That maybe, this time, she would just be happy for me. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had never deserved a place in my life. My mother, at 52, was the textbook definition of toxic. Controlling, cruel, obsessed with perfection. She had once been a model, and when an unexpected pregnancy forced her to quit, she never forgave me for it. Instead of nurturing me, she turned me into her personal project, her second chance. She wanted a miniature version of herself, and she was determined to mold me into exactly that. She dictated everything, what I ate, what I wore, how I carried myself. My life was never my own. Childhood with her was a nightmare. My father was barely home. He worked long hours, leaving me alone with a mother who saw me more as a reflection of her lost youth than as a daughter. She forced me into beauty pageants from the time I could walk, desperate to live through me. But I never won. Not once. And that only fueled her resentment. Each loss was a personal failure to her, proof that I wasn't good enough. She doubled down, pushing me harder, making me compete again and again, even when it was clear I had no interest. By the time I was 6, she had me on diets. She feared I would become chubby, so she micromanaged every bite I took. At that age, I didn't understand the cruelty of it. I only knew that I was always hungry. But as I got older, the realization hit me, there was something deeply wrong with her. When I reached middle school, I started pushing back. She packed my lunches with barely anything, half a fruit, maybe a cracker or two, but I found a way around her rules. My friends shared their food with me, their parents quietly packing extra in their lunches because they knew. They saw what she was doing. And they helped in the only way they could. High school gave me a little more freedom. My dad started giving me lunch money, something my mother couldn't control. I finally ate properly, filling the void that had always gnawed at me. And my body responded. I gained weight, but not in the way my mother feared. I wasn't fat, I was just normal. Healthy. Strong. But to her, it was an unforgivable betrayal. She began weighing me daily, her disappointment growing with every pound. When threats didn't work, she followed through on her promises. She starved me. Breakfast disappeared, snacks vanished. I was only allowed dinner because my father was home. But it wasn't enough. The hunger returned, sharper than ever. It all came crashing down when I fainted in class one day. I woke up in the ER, doctors hovering over me. My parents called in. My father, for the first time, saw what was happening. The doctors told them the truth. My body was starving. Either I was refusing to eat, or someone was keeping food from me. My mother's carefully constructed facade cracked. When we got home that night, my father sat me down. My mother was there too, but for once, I wasn't afraid of her. I told him everything. Every cruel word, every withheld meal, every pageant I had been forced into. The years of hunger, of humiliation, of feeling like I was never good enough. And as the words spilled out, I felt something shift inside me. I had been carrying this weight for years, suffocating under it. But now, finally, I was free. My father listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to rationalize. When I was done, he simply told me to go to my room. I didn't argue. As I climbed the stairs, I heard it begin, the screaming, the accusations. My mother, desperately trying to salvage the lies she had lived in for so long. But I knew. This time, she couldn't twist the truth. And as I sat in my room, listening to the chaos below, I realized I was done. Done trying to win her approval. Done hoping for love that would never come. And for the first time in my life, I felt something close to peace. My parents married young, their love story stretching back to high school. Fights were rare, almost unheard of, but that night was different. It was brutal. The kind of argument that sends a shiver down your spine. My father, the calm one, the peacemaker, had finally snapped. I had never seen him like that before. 3 hours. That's how long I stayed locked in my room, ears straining to catch muffled voices through the walls. When I finally ventured downstairs, the house had fallen into an eerie silence. My mother sat curled on the couch, her face streaked with tears, while my father remained across from her, his expression unreadable, cold as stone. Then he turned to me. His voice, steady yet firm, changed everything. "You don't have to listen to your mother anymore," he said. "You don't have to be afraid of her." He told me I could eat whatever I wanted. That my health, not my weight, was what mattered. Then, with a quiet certainty, he handed me some cash. "Go out," he urged. "Get some pizza with your friends." It was a freedom I had never known. My mother had always controlled the money, denying me any chance of eating out. Now, suddenly, I could. Thrilled and sensing my parents needed space, I left. When I returned, an uneasy calm had settled over the house. They were sleeping in separate rooms. I wanted to ask what had happened, but fear held me back. Whatever was said between them that night, it had changed everything. My mother never policed my meals again. That was a relief. But she also stopped speaking to me entirely. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. We lived in the same house, yet she acted as if I wasn't there. My parents didn't divorce, but the warmth between them was gone. They existed together, but apart. My father, though, changed in another way. Before, he had always been too busy, too consumed with work to really see me. But after that night, he started making time. Our conversations were awkward at first, brief and stilted, but slowly, we found a rhythm. By my senior year, we had built something real, something I had never had with him before. With my mother, though, nothing improved. She only spoke to me when absolutely necessary, avoiding me otherwise. I didn't push. I had fought enough battles with her. Peace, even if it meant distance, was better. I often wondered why they never separated. It made no sense. Their marriage was a shell of what it had once been. But I never asked. It was their decision, and I had no answers. By the time I left for college, my father and I were in a good place. Saying goodbye to him was hard. My mother, though, she surprised me. She wished me luck. A simple goodbye. It was the first genuine interaction we had in years. I didn't know what to make of it. In college, I made an effort to stay in touch with both my parents. Despite everything, I wanted to repair my relationship with my mother. I believed, maybe foolishly, that we could fix things. She wasn't all bad. Even when she had hurt me the most, there had been fleeting moments of love. But she never reciprocated my efforts. She barely responded to my messages, and when she did, it was distant, uninterested. Eventually, I gave up. My father, though, remained consistent. We talked every other day. With him, the bond kept growing. My mother, on the other hand, was slipping further away. It was ironic. She had broken my childhood, yet I was the one trying to mend things. And she couldn't be bothered. After graduating, I moved back home for a while, just until I could afford my own place. But nothing had changed. My parents still lived like strangers, inhabiting separate spaces under the same roof. My mother remained distant. The weight of it all, the tension, the emptiness, became unbearable. I needed something to change. So, I sat them down and told them the truth. I couldn't live like this anymore. I wanted us to fix what was broken. They hesitated, awkward and uncomfortable, but agreed to try family therapy. It didn't magically fix us, but it helped. Conversations that had been buried for years finally surfaced. My mother and I talked in ways we never had before. In one session, she admitted why she had treated me the way she did. She had wanted me to fulfill the dream she had lost, to keep her connected to the modeling world she had once been part of. Hearing that, it hurt. But I forgave her. My parents even started couples counseling. And for the first time in years, I saw progress. By the time I moved into my own place, I had hope. I thought, finally, maybe we could be a real family again. But I had underestimated my mother. Just as things seemed to be improving, she turned on me again. This time, it was different. She couldn't control me anymore, so she found new ways to cut me down. It started with snide comments about my weight, even though I was perfectly healthy. Then, she picked at my appearance, disguising insults as concern. But I knew better. I had spent too many years under her scrutiny to fall for it again. This time, I saw it for what it was, her attempt to regain the control she had lost. And I wasn't going to let her win. I looked her straight in the eye and didn't sugarcoat a single word. If she was planning on slipping back into her old habits, trying to control me, manipulating me under the guise of concern, then she might as well not bother coming to therapy with us at all. What would be the point? If she had no real intention of changing, if she only wanted to patch things up so she could reclaim her grip on my life, I wasn't interested. It would be better for us to go our separate ways. She tried to justify it, saying it was all just habit, a mother's instinct, but she swore she'd make an effort to keep her opinions to herself. That was years ago. And to her credit, she kept her word. That's the only reason we were able to have a relationship at all. My parents worked through their own issues, therapy helped, and eventually, things settled into something resembling normal. I was happy for them. Then, a couple of years ago, I met my husband at work. We hit it off, started dating, and just like that, our dynamic shifted. It wasn't just the three of us anymore, it became four. My mother still made the occasional comment about my weight, my appearance, but all it took was one glance from either me or my dad, and she'd backpedal. She'd apologize instantly. Did I wish she wouldn't say those things at all? Of course. But this was better than before. At least she recognized when she crossed the line. At least she was trying. We had a relationship because we all put in the effort. And for what it was worth, she had improved. Maybe not in every way, but enough for me to get a taste of what a normal family felt like. Then came my pregnancy announcement party. The day everything unraveled. All because of her. She thought it would be funny. A joke. A harmless little comment. But the moment the words left her mouth, I felt the air shift. The first thing she said after I announced my pregnancy? Well, at least now you have an excuse to get fat and eat as much as you want without worrying about what I think. Laughter rippled through the room. People chuckled. I forced a smile. This was supposed to be a happy day. I wasn't going to let her ruin it. But she wasn't done. She kept going. Pushing. Testing me. More jokes, more jabs. Guess you'll be stuffing yourself with junk food again. You're going to blow up like a balloon. Maybe it was the hormones. Maybe it was the years of biting my tongue. But I snapped. I turned to her, my voice sharp and unwavering. Bold of you to make jokes about my weight, considering you're the reason behind all my childhood trauma. Silence. The laughter died instantly. She froze. And in that moment, I saw it, the regret, the realization sinking in. But it was too late. The floodgates had opened. I had never spoken about my mother's obsession with my eating habits outside our home. No one beyond my parents and my husband knew the extent of it. But something inside me cracked, and I couldn't stop. I let it all out. Every comment, every cruel remark, every time she made me feel like I wasn't enough. My husband later told me I was hysterical. I don't remember much except the raw, burning anger that coursed through me. I called her out for what she was. Abusive. She had humiliated me for years. Now, the tables had turned. My parents left almost immediately. I had to step outside to calm myself down, but when I returned, I was met with nothing but support. No one blamed me. No one thought I had overreacted. They were just concerned. The party ended sooner than expected, but my husband reassured me. He held me close and told me he was proud. Proud that I finally stood up for myself. That I didn't let her trample over me like she used to. My mother, of course, saw it differently. She's been crying ever since. Claimed she was just joking, that I had no right to humiliate her in front of everyone. My father, surprisingly, took her side. He told me I took things too far, that I should have let the past stay buried. He insisted that my mother had changed, that she had apologized before, and I had accepted it. But had I? Or had I simply tolerated her for the sake of keeping the peace? My father said she was miserable now, that no one wanted to talk to them after the party. That this was my fault. That I had ruined everything. I told him the truth, she started it. She made the comments. But he brushed it off, saying I was too sensitive. That it was just harmless teasing. I disagree. And I don't know what to do anymore. Update. After reading all the comments and thinking it through, my husband and I made a decision. We don't owe her or my father an apology. I did nothing wrong. I put up with so much for so long, and if she can't handle the truth, that's on her. I told my father as much. He wasn't happy. Said I was being too harsh, too emotional. We argued, and now we're not speaking either. He blames me for everything. Says I pushed the family away. I don't see it that way. I see it as me finally standing up for myself. Another update. My mother blocked me on all social media. I don't even know how I feel about it. Angry? Sad? Relieved? Maybe a little of everything. But the truth is, I don't care enough to chase after her. She hasn't apologized. And now? It's too late. Final update. I made a decision. A hard one. But the right one. I blocked them both. Everywhere. I'm done. This toxic cycle ends now. My father always did the bare minimum for me, and my mother? She never really changed. They stayed together not because they wanted to be good parents, but because they wanted to make their marriage work. And in that equation, I was always the villain. No more. I won't play that role anymore. My future child will only have one set of grandparents. And I'm okay with that. This ends here. For good.